still held in premier position, because there's 500 years of history.
You're talking
and culture.
From a cultural point of view. But you mentioned people like Clennell Wickham, people like Mary Shaw from Grenada, Elbara.
Absolutely.
And obviously their involvement in this European conflict theater would have broadened their outlook about life and fashioned their political consciousness.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, very much so. This was the grassroots, this was the university of the world as it was then. And many of our leaders today were very much influenced by that particular period. This was the period of educating our politicians. I don't mean in education in terms of tertiary education, but really a much broader outlook in terms of moving towards nationhood.
If there is perhaps a drawback, for instance, look at the ATS. Some women complained that they were not, when they returned to Barbados and to the Caribbean, they were not accepted by the local population because they left their jobs and they went up to serve. You want to elaborate on that a bit?
Yes, it did exist, and I have to say, sadly, it's to a certain extent still exists today, not to the same extent. I think the view was sometimes held by those who remained at home that they had the hard task and those who went abroad had the easy task. And that why should they therefore be given certain privilege, whether that be keeping their jobs open and so on. So there was, I think, a division that occurred and a misunderstanding. I think perhaps on the side of the planners, the communication was very poor. People misunderstood that when you go to war or when you're traveling abroad, it isn't a bed of roses. It's extremely difficult and hard-working. But people who were here were also under difficult conditions. There were shortage of food. They were also under attack. They also felt that they were being deprived. And getting these two together was very difficult. And I think in many instances, misunderstanding took place. But I think it's changing now.
Given the fact that you have written what one might call a groundbreaking work, there's loads of material. Do you think, having done your research, that there is need for a sequel to this book?
I'm sure there will be. I remember when I started this book, I had lunch with an eminent academic, and he gave me two bits of advice. He said, first of all, don't give up your day job. Well, I had already retired, so that was a bit late in telling me that bit of information. But he also told me another bit of information which I think was very useful, which I passed on. He says, what your book will have done is to be the benchmark. There will be other people who will be listening to this program, who will have attended conferences or even read the book, and they will take it further. They will take a chapter and expand upon it, or something that we've said and expand upon it. But what they won't be able to take away from us is that we would have been the original source. So I hope other people will take it further, and if we can, we will do the same. But I hope other people will help them take the story forward.
Because there are aspects that emerges from this book. For instance, the formation of the West Indies regiments. I think you alluded to the fact that this was the basis of integration, because at Federation you had the basis of West Indies regiment. So if anything, that aspect of the book can be developed further as the genesis of regional integration.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great, as you know, the Federation didn't happen when it was planned. We are now having a new look at that in a different light. But I think the West Indian at the time, the new Federation did have an armed forces concept and appeal to it. Sadly, it did not proceed because the Federation came apart. But what it did do, that like cricket, like the University of the West Indies, there are certain federal structures which work, and where in fact it is the whole is much bigger than the individual parts. And I think, if anything, I think we will begin to move more and more towards that.
There is a governor who in his dispatch to the Colonial Office, talk about cohesion among, alluding to the formation of the regiments, alluding to this idea of cohesion among the islands. I think so. One could possibly say that integration then had is a natural outgrowth of the reality of the Caribbean islands.
Absolutely. The difficulty is that you cannot miss something you have not experienced. We belong to CARICOM, there are 15 nations, and I hope that within my lifetime that we will see free travel and movement within those, that someone can explain the joys of Trinidad, the joys of Jamaica, the joys of Belize, the joys of St. Lucia. But until we have freedom of movement, both in people and business and so on, it will not happen.
I'll tell you what, this is not because I know that you're a soldier, but the book is written because it pays a lot of attention to military aspects. Yeah. For instance, you talk about tonnage sunk in this, you know, and the number of VC awarded to Caribbean people. Yeah. So you use your military, and I think Professor Beckles alluded to it too, that you've looked at it through military.
Yes,
Would you say that?
Yes, we did. Because of my, although I've been a businessman for 40-odd years, and as you know, I ran major newspapers in the United Kingdom and television as well. But I was a soldier in my youth, and I still have, if you like, a liking, and I feel that I have something to contribute with my co-author. And we feel that we have, by giving it a military outlook, we felt that we had something to contribute.
Well, Mr. Metzger, I want to thank you for coming to Book Talk, and I hope that you will be very successful in your next book. You've been watching Book Talk. I've been talking to Mr. Humphrey Metzkin, who, along with Brigadier General John Graham, wrote the book Caribbean Wars Untold, a salute to British West Indies. It's at all the bookstores in the Caribbean. Go out and buy it. It's a very important book, and it's relevant to all of us.
Bless my eyesight. What don't happen in a year could happen in a day, Wilton the shopkeeper exclaimed. Or a night, Mildred observed. Now get me right. I am glad that I am seeing you at this moment. You know that I would be a liar if I didn't say that. I don't see you. But you are no owl, and so you are never out at night. But I am out tonight, and I am in the best shop in the district, she said. Mildred was careful not to call it a rum shop.